Rono. Senator Sheehy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll start with you, Admiral. You talked about the Manhattan Project in your comments, and I think that was an era when the government was oftentimes the hotbed of innovation, and I think we can all agree that's not the case anymore. So, as we're looking at, I was reading about China having a salt-based fission reactor online just recently, which of course is a huge leap in technology. How are you going to incentivize private industry innovation to make sure that we either regain or stay in the lead for nuclear innovation around the world?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Senator. Obviously, our national labs, our strategic labs, they are really leading edge on some of this innovation and technology, and really a national treasure for all of us. So I want to make sure we continue that science-based approach that we have at our national labs, but also making sure that we take the opportunity to coordinate with other business and other academic institutions to go leverage what other innovations are going on across the country.
So, for example, there's a number of smaller companies innovating in microreactors, and they're having a very hard time getting access to processed fissionable material so they can proceed with not just their development, but actually the production of these items. How can you streamline the access of this material? Of course, it has to be controlled, and we have to vet these companies, but many of them are vetted and are capable of receiving this material, yet they'll wait years on a very simple approval. How can you expedite that?
I'm not fully apprised, Senator, on all of the details within NNSA on the processes for that, but I commit that I will work with the NNSA Administrator and the Secretary of Energy, and as necessary, the Department of Defense, to make sure I look at those processes and find ways to streamline those as appropriate.
You know, our Triad is from a bygone era. You know, our B-52s are coming up on 70 years old as far as the airframes. You know, our silos in Montana for the Minuteman, those are half a century old technology, if not older. And, luckily our undersea leg of the Triad is pretty healthy, but we can't build those subs fast enough, as you know. So how are you going to contribute to a revitalization of that Triad to make sure we are competing with and leading China and other near peers?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Senator. Obviously, I'm completely aligned with you on the need to recapitalize all legs of our nuclear triad right now. If confirmed, NNSA's key role in that is making sure we maintain the nuclear stockpile stewardship as we move into production of new weapons. Also look for, obviously, innovative technologies or innovative ways to design weapons or weapons materials through advanced technologies to get more after weapons production more quickly going forward here.
And Mr. Catanazzi, regarding acquisition reform, I think in the past 25 years since the global war on terror started, we've all seen every lab, accelerator, innovation unit, lots of little tents are stood up saying we're going to change innovation for acquisition. We're going to accelerate acquisition. We're going to get geared to the warfighter. And all we hear is a lot of offices stood up, a lot of money spent, but very little progress is made. It's time for real progress, as we've seen across the world in Israel, in the war in Ukraine. Defense acquisition has to turn a page and be fundamentally restructured so we can buy things faster. We can welcome more suppliers to our industrial base, welcome them, not scare them away with unneeded regulation and burdensome compliance requirements like Senator Hirono just mentioned. So what are the top three things you're going to do as fast as you can do, besides ask for more money, to actually change the defense acquisition paradigm to broaden our industrial base and strengthen it?
Senator, I appreciate the question. It was a pleasure to talk to you last week. Thank you for the time. So when it comes to the acquisition reform process, I think former Secretary Kendall said it best, that there's no such thing as acquisition reform, there's just acquisition improvement. And I think that holds true, that there's a lot to be done. My particular focus in this area is centered on a couple of particular things. One is to more fully leverage the available authorities like middle tier of acquisition, other transaction authority, through education of the acquisition workforce. I think the new executive order captures that. We need to move that into law and make sure that that becomes something that's driven in a more actionable way by the department. Two is predictable, stable budgets will allow us to go ahead and mitigate some of the risks associated with how the industrial base and the programs respond. They make plans, budgets change, and then necessarily their activities in the industrial base alignment around them have to change as well. And then third is anything we can do to sort of decrease the level of regulation, the level of difficulty in getting access to work. So you mentioned new vendors, new companies. We want that. We now have a time when there's a lot of new interest in the Defense Department and serving it. We should take advantage of that as every way we can. If confirmed, I'm excited to work with you and the committee on that issue.
Well, our acquisition structure usually fights the last war, and in my era, it was the MRAP, the Mine Resistant Armor Protect Vehicles. Bob Gates pushed those through. We got it done. It saved a lot of lives, including a lot of folks I know.
Hear, hear.
But it came too late. And instead of innovating after our 17, 18, 19-year-old kids are dying on the battlefield, let's innovate beforehand, because they're the ones that are going to pay the price for our failures. So for both of you, I ask you, you focus heavily on the reforms we need, because we need to be ready next time. Thanks.